Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order on December 3rd at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to read the Douglas Public Schools mission statement. The Douglas Public Schools offer a diverse learning experience that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all of our students. We provide a safe, supportive, and a challenging learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call our student representatives up, Ashton Crawley and Caitlin Morrison. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Ashton Crowley, and I'm here with Caitlin Morris. We are the president and vice president of the 8th grade class at the middle school. There are a lot of exciting things happening around the middle school. Winter sports tryouts have started this week. Middle schoolers have the opportunity to try out for the middle school basketball and middle school cheerleading. They are also able to participate in JV basketball, winter track at the high school, a hockey team, and wrestling team. Many students are busy trying out this, and we wish them all luck.
Our annual food drive for St. Denis Church was a huge success, with the students and staff donating over 700 items. The student council met at St. Denis Church and unloaded 2 full cars of cans. The food pantry was very grateful. Since the school reached the goal of 600 cans, we had a dodgeball tournament by grade on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and Ms. Copeland's class earned a free period in our indoor recess area as the top collecting homeroom. The student council is now working hard on a winter dance for next Friday in the cafeteria for middle school students in a December Spirit Week. This group will also be helping Miss Avidian with the annual Snowflake Drive to help families in need in our community.
We finished the first round of literature circles in October and wrapped up with discussions groups on November 19th. Students use a Google form to choose options and are put into groups with a teacher who leads the group. Group meet twice a month during the wind block. The next books will be given out on December 12th. The goal of this program is to have all middle schoolers ready for enjoyment regularly.
The Student of the Month breakfast took place in November to honor students in each grade and related arts areas. Students were honored for grit, citizenship, and academics. In 8th grade classes, students learned about the Day of the Dead in Spanish and created their own alebrijes, and then we watched the movie Coco to see how families celebrate the occasion. In English, we just completed an essay, and we are now reviewing parts of speech before diving into narrative writing. In science, we just finished a unit on ocean tides, currents, and we are starting a unit on the most dangerous animals. Can you guess what it is? In math, we are learning about functions and relations and graphs. And in civics, we are learning about the Declaration of Independence. Mrs. Markopoulos has been meeting with the 8th graders during certain classes to discuss career development using MIFA Pathway to explore various jobs they may be interested in. The 8th graders will be walking up to visit the high school in December to learn about their different programs and enjoy band and chorus performance and the drama club's play rehearsal.
In 7th grade news, the students have been working on convection, radiation, insulators, and conductors in science. They have been working on a penguin lab, which helps them understand how all 5 topics come together. In math, the students have been working on decimals, percentages, and fractions. They have played bingo and made a small project about what they do in 24 hours using decimals. percentages, and fractions. In history, they have been learning about ancient Indian civilization and have a vocabulary quiz next week. As the unit comes to an end, they will have their unit test in 2 weeks. In ELA, the students have started to read A Christmas Carol in preparation for their upcoming field trip to the Hanover Theater. They also have been working on peer editing, where the students get one of their peers writing pieces, and they must correct it. When the student gets it back, they must read their peers. Feedback and improve their writing based on what their classmates said. Down on the 6th grade floor in science, they just wrapped up on their topic on seafloor and plate tectonics. After the test, they will be learning about rock fossils. In math, they just finished up their topic of rates, ratios, unit rate, and measurement convergence. They will soon be starting to expand their knowledge of percentages and social studies. They are in middle of learning about the geography of Middle Eastern countries and will soon be starting to learn about ancient Mesopotamia. In ELA, they have just finished a summer reading slideshow where students had to write about a book they recently read to describe character, analyze, and measure events of the story. Students have been learning technology skills on how to animate and transition Google Slides while also trying to improve their writing skills by learning how to use transition phrases.
Thank you for having us and have a great night.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Moving on to any old business?
I don't have any tonight.
Moving on to new business and superintendent's report, please.
Any public comment?
Is anyone here for public comment?
Okay. So I just didn't want to miss that opportunity. So first on the agenda, I'm really proud and happy to have our state representative, Joe McKenna, here with us tonight. Going to come and spend a few minutes, I don't want to steal a lot of his thunder, but talk a lot about what's happening in Boston in the political landscape, but more importantly, what's happening legislatively for schools and education. So,
yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for
Very,
coming.
very good to be here tonight. For anyone who does not know me, I'm State Rep Joe McKenna. I've been privileged to be the state rep for Douglas for 10 years now. And I was recently meeting with Superintendent Vieira just to catch up and kind of have a dialogue about the state of Douglas schools and the state of education in the state. And he said, well, we should certainly have you come to the school committee. And I said, absolutely, be happy to. And primarily, that's why I'm here, to maintain an open line of communication. I like to think that I'm accessible, and hopefully people know how to reach me, and it doesn't take a meeting of the school committee to get me to somewhere to talk. So I want to make sure that you recognize and realize that there is an open line of communication with me, with my office, should there be any issues or questions or concerns. And that's true of Senator Fatman as well. He shares the delegation, and we work very closely together. But kind of looking at where things stand at a statewide level, we are on the precipice of engaging in a pretty substantive review of the Chapter 70 formula. If you recall, back in 2017, 18, 19, the Student Opportunity Act was passed. And that is now just about fully implemented, and we've actually spent significantly more money to implement that than was originally prescribed. I'm fortunate to sit on the House Committee on Ways and Means, and so part of that committee is to go around the state, have public hearings, and craft the state budget. And one of the biggest issues and questions that was raised by many members of the committee was Chapter 70 and education funding, particularly for rural districts west of 495. What Chairman Aaron Michaelwitz, chairs Ways and Means, what he indicated was that as a legislature, we are going to finish out the implementation of Student Opportunity Act before taking on any significant Chapter 70 changes. With that being said, just this past October, there was a listening session. There were 5 listening sessions and an open public comment session initiated to solicit feedback from schools about where Chapter 70 is coming up short. And so it wasn't as well publicized as I wish it had been, but there is opportunity to provide written comment still. The public listening session in Worcester was at the end of October, I believe, but there is still opportunity for written testimony. To me, I think that a review of Chapter 70 can only benefit Douglas. However, it is a revision of a formula. And so I always kind of preface that by saying when you recalculate a formula, you're reshuffling the deck, so there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers because the distribution of money is going to be reshuffled. And so I can't say with certainty that Douglas will benefit. There may be some areas where Douglas suffers. That remains to be seen. We really don't know what a recalculation of Chapter 70 looks like. One of the big things that the study is trying to determine and get more clarity on is the target local contribution. That has been kind of a pain point, a pressure point for a lot of communities, especially smaller communities seeing a declining student enrollment, making the math fit. And I had shared with Superintendent a conversation I had with a colleague, which I was surprised by and really frustrated by, about student enrollment declining. And I said, well, you know, student enrollment in most of the school districts in Massachusetts outside of the cities is going down. And the comment I got back was, well, then it should be cheaper to educate. I said, well, that's not how it works. You lose 1 student in kindergarten, 2 in first grade, maybe 1 in second grade, and a whole family moved out, so you lose 3 or 4 in elementary school, but that doesn't mean that you can simply cut a classroom out or cut a specialist out. And so the overhead remains the same, even though you have declining student enrollment, so your per pupil goes, you know, and it just, the math doesn't math very well for smaller communities. And I recognize that, and many of my colleagues do. We need to make sure that the Chapter 70 equation recognizes that. So that's kind of a broad perspective of where the state is looking. The study that was commissioned by the legislature to report on Chapter 70 is scheduled to be due December of '26, meaning that any substantive, meaningful change won't come until 2027. So, I mean, this is significant runway to get somewhere better formula-based. One thing that I have been pushing, and it's above my pay grade, so I don't know how to get it done, but it's something I'm exploring. I have a ton of research on it, is trying to figure out how to somehow decouple the special ed costs from base Chapter 70. And special ed costs kind of work on a spectrum, and my middle son is in Sutton Schools and just started on an IEP, so he is in the program, but he's one that needs a little bit of help, a little bit of the day, and it's education. I've heard many stories from schools about students who need one-on-one, 24/7 care, hundreds of thousands of dollars for one student, and to me, there becomes a point where that becomes healthcare. That branches away from education and becomes healthcare. And those students, they absolutely deserve the care and the education and the support of the state, but that can completely torpedo a municipal budget, especially a smaller town. And I'm just hoping that there's some way to have a more discerning evaluation of special ed funding as it pertains to Chapter 70 so that it doesn't torpedo a school's budget, which then torpedoes a town budget, especially because the circuit breaker funding is reimbursement based, so it's following anyway, so you're getting money after the fact. It's not the full amount that you put out, and it's just not a working solution at this point of time. And I think that there's a lot of recognition of that, but what a solution looks like, I don't have an answer to that. I don't know, because at the end of the day, it is going to be somewhat of a shell game. So if you decouple special ed funding from Chapter 70, that funding is going to need to come from somewhere, so that's going to be a whole nother pot of money somewhere. But my hopes would be that it would at least provide some stability and certainty and predictability in the Chapter 70 that doesn't exist now, that would allow the school committee and the school district to budget more confidently, which then will help the municipality budget more confidently. So that's one thing that I'm trying to get some research in place for and advocacy for. Again, in those Ways and Means hearings, there were a number of people who raised very similar concerns. So the rural districts, the declining student population in rural districts, special ed costs, out-of-school placements, those are some of the areas that we have heard a lot of legislative conversation at, and hopefully there will be some positive movement towards that. So if there's any specific feedback or insight that you all have, I would encourage you to look to provide that as written testimony. I can help facilitate that if you need. And certainly I would welcome engagement directly with me, whether you have questions or concerns, want me to come back and answer any questions, bring any further information, or just want to provide me your feelings, insights, and perspectives. I value that as well. So that's kind of what I have from my side of things. I'm happy to kind of have an open conversation, answer any questions, or if anything else is up.
I talk to you all the time. And you are extremely accessible. And I really appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Because I think you do a lot beyond, like, you kind of fly under the radar. You're not a social media
You know what?
person.
I'm not a very good self-promoter as
You're
far as
not,
politicians go. So
But you do a lot.
Thank
You
you.
do a lot. And I know you're extremely responsive. When people reach out to you, you are very responsive. You and Lori.
yeah.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair. First of all, thank you for coming. I know how busy you must be. So, and you have many constituents, so coming here means a lot, I know, to us and to the people in Douglas. I'm wondering how, especially where you're on the Ways and Means Committee, what the outlook is going forward. And I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but with federal funding being what it is, if there's anything that we should be aware of on the horizon, what the upcoming budget season looks like, that sort of thing.
So that has been the million-dollar question for the past year, and throughout the entire budget writing process, through all the hearings, it was, well, we don't know, we've got to be cautious. And then it reached a point where there was so much uncertainty that ultimately they decided, well, we just need to move forward with the state budget, make a commitment, and if something comes downhill after the fact, we'll deal with it. So we've kind of been operating as if everything will continue as expected, as standard. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been any direct undercutting of funding yet. The tax revenues at the state level have been outperforming benchmarks, so that's a positive sign. That means at least on the state level, our internal tax revenue health is good. So should there be any peel back or withdrawal of fundings from the federal government, there is certainly rainy day money in the Commonwealth and healthy revenue that hopefully would be able to stopgap any issues there. I know SNAP was obviously one of the most publicized issues during the government shutdown. Ultimately, it ended up being fully funded, and there haven't been any major issues with that, despite the fact that it was incredibly stressful and uncertain for many people for a long time.
And as a quick follow-up to that, as you were speaking, I was like, oh, wait, let's talk about this. The school lunch program.
Yep.
Going forward, is that going to continue to be funded so that it's free to all the
Yeah,
students?
so during COVID, it was a federal program to provide free school lunches. Massachusetts is the only state in the country, to my knowledge, that took it on as a state initiative and continued that program. And I'm certainly a proponent and a supporter of that. Even people that have initially opposed it, especially in more well-to-do communities that don't have a need per se have recognized the benefit and the good that it provides and have come around and been supportive. So I see that as a program that's going to continue in Massachusetts with funding.
Wonderful. And just for your knowledge, and I can speak, I think, and you can too, Dr. Vieira, that enrollment in the student, in the lunch program has increased quite a bit. I know breakfast as well, which is huge. So, and it's so important for all the reasons, but it's meeting the needs of children that don't get fed at home or don't have, that have food insecurity. But it also is introducing students to new foods and healthier options. And I can speak from experience with my two. So I think it's great that they're trying new foods that I couldn't. So it's become part of the educational process, all because it's being funded by the state, which is such a boon. So please know that we love that program.
Yeah.
And I think everybody does.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just want to say hi, and I've met you quite a long time ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago, but it's so nice to see you here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
I am sure that everyone in Douglas who watches, we have a lot that tune in often. It's empty here. Sometimes we're so happy when we do get people, but people tune in. They'll like ping us later on, and they know what's going on. So I think they'll be really appreciative of you taking the time to come here. I'd love to see you back and even giving us updates. You know, the school committee email goes right to all of us, so we'd love to hear updates as things progress, so that we can kind of keep tabs on it, and happy to help in any way with written testimony that we can as well.
Yeah, and it's really should be a partnership between the state officials and the town, and sometimes it's not always as partnershipy as it should be. There's kind of an us versus them mentality, which is unfortunate, but it is the reality. So as much as I can help break that down and maintain the dialogue, I'm happy to. And if there's ever a specific question that you want, whether it's a quick email answer that I can provide or coming back and providing an update, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just echo what my colleagues all said. I'm interested more in the Chapter 70 special ed. If there's a way for, because we have to educate all of our children in our district.
Yeah.
But tying it more to healthcare for that one-on-one, because they need that in order to support them to get the educational services that every child needs. I think that is a brilliant idea. I don't know if the healthcare system is going to buy into that. That's going to be your challenge. But if there's some way that we can advocate for you and give testimony for that, because special ed costs have skyrocketed, as most of us small districts are able to say, yeah, it's cost prohibitive, but we have to do it, right? That's what we're supposed to do. But it eats our lunch, and we are in the rears for getting reimbursement. If there was a way for the state to actually use a rainy day fund and put it in there where you're getting reimbursed in that fiscal year, right? Kind of like doing a reimbursable, because federal government does reimbursable stuff. I think the state can figure that out too, right? Versus making us wait a whole year, because that could bankrupt you.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially when you're waiting a whole year and you're getting 65%, 70% of what you outlaid, you're not even getting the full return.
And you can't plan because you
You
don't know
can't
what's going to
plan.
happen.
And so if you get 10 kiddos that need to have out-district placement, that can bankrupt you.
Yeah, especially if you have a new family move in, mid-school
And
year, hasn't been
so,
prepared.
Like I said, if there's a way that, I am more than happy to draft a letter for all of us to sign. I'm more than happy to do that, but I think that's really, the special ed is eating our lunch out in these small districts. And we're a bedroom community. We don't have industry, right? Whereas some of our other neighborhoods, our neighbors and other school districts around us have industry. We don't.
Yeah, well, and as an example, this past school year, Webster, who is also in my district, I have them, the increase of their special ed was like $1.3 million. That's not their full special ed cost. That was just the amount that it increased by, on top of what they were already paying. I mean, that's an outrageous amount of money for a town that's 17,000 in population with income issues. Like, it's just wild. So the email address for comments, it's pretty easy to find online, but it's c70publiccomment@mass.gov. So C70, Chapter 70, public comment at mass.gov. And so I'm sure letters as individuals, as a committee, as a superintendent would all be appropriate and welcome.
Yep. So, I mean,
Is that okay for, like, can we send
You
it?
can do it as a taxpayer in the
I was gonna say,
community.
do we need to do it from the school? Like,
we
do
can
you
do
need to
one-
send it if it's from the school committee and then we
have all
send
of us
it?
sign it.
Okay.
I think the most powerful would be as a committee,
Okay.
signed by everyone, but I think that individuals would be appropriate. I don't think there would be anything
If there's no-
inappropriate or, yeah.
You're
Anyone
a
can-
taxpayer too.
No, I know. I was like, do I send both? Do we just?
You can do both.
Got it.
We do both, it's about volume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming and
absolutely.
speaking with us. And like I said, if you, anytime it's an open door policy, if you want to come back and give us an update, we'll make sure you get on the calendar to come back and talk to us. We appreciate you.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you happen to come across a little bit of money, we are looking to do, we are putting it on our capital improvement plan, but we're really looking to do stuff with the primary playground
Yes.
Okay.
and really do some stuff
Yes.
there. So if there happens to be funds that can only go to something like that, like to making it more ADA compliant and different things, we would
We
really.
needed ADA compliant.
Yeah, if you could follow up with an email, that was something I talked with superintendent about, was through the budget process, the
Yep.
earmarks that we as legislators are able to get are generally, they're disappointingly small, but they're good for capital outlays, small one-time expenditures, certainly not any operating or human capital, things like that, but making a playground ADA, technology in classrooms, small capital outlays that don't necessarily have a good place in the budget. Those are perfect items that we can try and pursue.
I'll follow up with you.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
for coming, appreciate it.
Absolutely,
Happy
my pleasure.
holidays if we
Yes,
don't have a
happy
chance to
holidays.
speak.
Yeah. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. As I wait for Jacob to put it on the screen, next we're going to talk, spend some time on the update on the grade reconfiguration within the public schools. I came to the committee and sent out to the community an email back in September that we were exploring doing a grade reconfiguration. And I fully recognize that for many people that caused a lot of angst. But as I said, when we did this originally back in September, in order for me to be able to do this and do it right and get the input that I needed, I had to be open and transparent. So I know the stress has caused many families, I know the stress has caused kids, I know the stress it caused staff, but I didn't want to do this behind closed doors. And it had to be open and transparent for us to be able to, for me to be able to come to a decision. So as we always do, we start off with our mission statement, and we read it at the start of the meeting. And ultimately, what we always try to do is make decisions that are in the best needs of and interests of our students. As I was going through this project, in order to ground me in the work that we were going to do, I wanted to come up with a mission statement and a goal. So the mission statement that I had was to thoughtfully explore and evaluate potential grade reconfiguration that enhances early childhood education, expands the learning opportunities, strengthens competitiveness, and maximizes resources. We will engage families, staff, and community stakeholders in a transparent and collaborative process to ensure decisions reflect the best interest of all students in Douglas. With the goal being that by winter of 2025, and we're basically right there, we will develop and present a comprehensive grade reconfiguration proposal informed by research, analysis of comparable districts, and input from shareholders with the aim of expanding pre-K capacity, enriching middle and high school opportunities, and aligning resources to meet the needs of today's learners. So what was the problem of practice? What was it that we were looking at to do? So it was really two issues. The first one was the primary school only had 3 pre-K classrooms. We had seen an increase in demand for both special education and regular education pre-K placement, and moving first grade from the elementary school, from the primary school to the elementary school, would create 4 additional classrooms. That was one problem we were trying to solve. How do we create space to expand preschool? That caused a domino effect throughout the district. The other thing we were looking at was many districts have moved 8th grade to the high school setting to strengthen educational opportunities, increase competitiveness with vocational schools, and provide greater financial and programmatic opportunities for both students and the community. So it was two-purposed. One, it was to increase those opportunities and create the space that we needed at the primary, but secondly was how could we keep more kids from grade 8 to grade 9 within the Douglas Public Schools. So with that said, what are we looking at for next year at the primary school? So first grade will not be relocating. First grade will stay at the primary school next year or until more preschool classes are needed to be added. What we did to create the space to add a room was we're relocating before and after school care from the primary school to the elementary school. And that'll go on the second floor of the elementary school. And again, we're working with our staff here, we're working with Whitensville staff, we're working with Castile for how that move is going to work. They said they needed about 2 months to make a move happen. We have 9 months, so we'll have plenty of time to make that move, inform families, but we're relocating before and after school care to the elementary school to free up the 2 classroom spaces. What we're going to do is we're going to be adding a new 3-year-old classroom for next year in preschool, whether that's full day, half day, 3 days a week, AM, PM, still to be determined. But that's part of what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. But the goal is to add that additional 3-year-old classroom. We're going to do that with budget neutral staffing. We're going to reallocate sources internally, so we're not going to be adding an extra FTE to the budget to make that happen. Additional program enhancements at the primary school under consideration. One of the things we've seen is the need for before and after preschool care.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sticks, yes.
So this now creates the space for that to happen. Cindy and her team are exploring what would that look like? How often before? How many days before? How many hours before? What does that look like? What does she need for accreditation? What's the cost? Who would staff it? What does that look like? But it would be awesome for us to be able to offer
Yes.
before and after care for preschool, because currently we can't, the way it's set up. Grade transition plan, and I'll get to this later. We've invested a tremendous amount of work and time, the principals and the directors, in putting together a plan for if we had to do a grade reconfiguration, what would it look like? We're about 80% of the way through that plan. We need input from staff and we need input from families as to if this is going to happen, what does it look like? And to be clear, we're not doing this next year, we're not doing this the year after. What I don't want to see happen is come to a point, and I'll explain a little on, where maybe in 3-4 years we have to do it, and I at least want to have the skeleton of a plan done, that if we need to do this in 2-3 years, we've already have a good blueprint and skeleton started. I don't want to stop the work that we've done, and I want to finish the plan out. And as we talked about, we'd love to upgrade the playscape at the primary school. It's awesome for our kids, but it's also great for the community, for people to come afterwards. So that's the plan at the primary school for next year. In terms of the elementary school, no changes. We'll stay 2 to 5. The only changes before and after school is going to be before and after school is moving to the primary. We might have to shuffle some rooms around, but 2 through 5 stays 2 through 5 at the elementary school. So now moving on to the middle school. As I said, there were 2 issues that we investigated. One is that if we had to move the first grade to the elementary school, we were going to have to move the 5th grade to the middle school. Not having that move happen made that point moot. So the other thing we were looking at was retaining students from grade 8 to grade 9. What did that look like? And through the time, through the research, through a lot of conversations, what we're doing at this time is we're pausing, but we'll continue to investigate what a potential move looks like, if space is needed, and or should the new BVT enrollment formula not yield the desired results. And I'll explain what that means in a few minutes. So right now, we're not going to do anything because we don't need the space, but if we do need it down the road, the move might happen. But BVT's come up with a pretty creative formula to try to help out districts like Douglas And if that formula does what the formula is supposed to do, we'll see those numbers organically happen within the public schools. Some things we need to continue to investigate and that we're working on just for people still to see, and this is the bulk of the work that needs to be done. And I said this all, I want to be cautious and deliberate before we make any changes. So I want to continue to have the conversations. One of the things we're still looking at is bus routes. What does that look like? Obviously, we're not going to finalize anything because kids change, addresses change, people move. So what we need in FY26 could look different in FY29. But Ms. Landry's already started that conversation with Tellstone for them to be creative about it. We might have to make changes to the collective bargaining agreement with the Teachers Association. Again, without a move, we don't need to do anything. But if we do need to make a move, there might be some changes to the CBA we have to do. With a move, especially at the high school level, what does staffing levels look like and what does that do for the budget? So again, those are all conversations we're still going to continue to have over the next few weeks or months. We have to examine how special education services are provided. When you move potentially the 5th grade to the middle school and then the 8th grade to the high school, that shifts enrollment. And again, what it looks like in 26 is different in 27, is different in 28, but we want to make sure we're having those discussions with our staff to know what that would look like. The next piece is the BVT formula. And I want to thank Anthony Steele for coming down and Dr. Connors for coming down and meeting with us and explaining this formula. There was a lot of work and a lot of time that went into it. I've seen the presentation twice. I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I got a pretty decent handle on it. But here's what the committee and the community needs to know. They're doing a new lottery system for how they're going to select students. The way it was done in the past was, it was a point system. You got a certain amount of points for attendance, certain number of points for grades, certain number of points for your application and your interview. They're doing away with that, and it's a lottery system. Every student has the opportunity to earn up to 4 tickets. You get 1 ticket for filling out the application. Pretty straightforward. You get 1 ticket for attending any one of the multiple open houses they hold. You get 1 ticket if you've never committed a felony within a public school district. You can commit them outside, just not inside. Okay? And the 4th one is you have to have less than 27 absences over a 270-day period, which is all of 7th grade and half of 8th grade. So if you meet those 4 criteria, you get 4 tickets in. So if Mrs. Steele knows that we have 17 spots available to Douglas and 100 kids apply, the first 17 names pulled are the ones who get the first crack. And then if numbers 2, 4, and 8 say no, then numbers 18, 19, and 20 will get an email or a letter saying, congratulations, you're in. But it's a pure lottery system.
No more interviews.
No more what?
No more interviews.
No more interviews. Pure lottery. The other thing they're trying to do is create an equitable balance. So right now, and my numbers might be off depending on the year, but we are one of the smallest districts within the BVT family, but we send one of the highest percentage of kids to BVT. So if you look at our 4-year enrollment rate, we have 121 students currently at BVT, an average over a 4-year period. That apportionment comes to 5.58% of the BVT family. So what they're trying to do is create a ratio, a foundation ratio, as that if we really have 5.58%, what should that look like for Douglas? And that's based off of this year's numbers, 70 students. So if it was a true proportion, our population, to what we should be sending to BVT, it's 70 students. So that's a delta of 50 kids, 120 to 70 is 50. So what they're looking to do is over the next 10 years, reduce the number from 120 to 70, which is an average of 5 kids a year. We pushed to move that to 5 years. and there wasn't an appetite for that. As Mr. Steele said, although in Douglas you would love to reduce that by 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids a year, there are some communities who are going to have to increase 8, 9, 10 kids a year over 10 years, and then the financial hit on those communities might be too much. So he's balancing both sides.
I did respect it, so I'll just, I did remind him that you didn't care when we had to do an override because we didn't have the money in our budget, because BBT comes out of the town side.
Correct.
And I said, so for me, you know, I don't have the empathy there because of the fact we lived it. We had to do an override. We had to lay people off. Other districts, I think, should be able to, they have industry. We don't. We were a bedroom community and still are a bedroom community.
But that's the formula. So really one of the questions I grappled with was, if you look at the 5-year average of Douglas, we're averaging 55.6 applicants per year. So I want you to keep that number in mind as we look at the next slide. I'm sorry, not this. You'll keep that in mind when we do the slides for this one. So as I say, Douglas currently makes up 5.58 of the BVT community. We should have 70 students at BVT. Our current 4-year average is 121. It's a delta of 50. To get to 70 students, BVT will reduce about 5 students a year for 10 years. If that is accurate based off of FY26 numbers, that's an average of 17.5 students per grade. That's the cap. So if we got to 70 students, you divide that by 4, we're looking at 17.5 students a year, which would be a phenomenal number to get to. We have a 5-year application rate, average of 55.6 applicants in Douglas a year. Here's some interesting numbers. In 2025, if you take the number of applicants across all towns, 43% is the number. So 43% of the students in all the towns that make up the BVT community are what we're applying. So even if you look at Douglas with about 100 kids per grade level, even if we got to the average, you're looking at 43 applicants. I even did it where I removed the high and the low, and it was still 43. In Douglas, we're at 56%. And as Anthony continued to drill, and I understand why, all of this is going to be reassessed and updated on a yearly basis. As numbers in enrollment go up and down, those figures will change. So this is the BVT formula. If you look at FY26, our current year, we have 40 students in grade 9, 34 in 10, 34 in 11, 24 in grade 12. So in order to get to that ratio, we have 24 seniors graduating. 24 minus 5 is 19. So next year, he's going to put a cap on or about 19 students accepted to BVT in order to try to get us down to the 70. So then in FY27, we have 19, 40 10th graders, 34 11th, 34 12th. When we have the 34 12th graders graduate, in FY28, 34 minus 9 is 29. And you can follow that pattern all the way through, with a goal in 10 years of having the number be 17.5 based off of current numbers and the average. Really, what I looked at was, if the only way to get less than the cap is if you have less kids apply. And if we're averaging 55.6 kids a year applying, moving the 8th grade to the high school, even with the average, God bless you, even with the average across the BVT family being 43%, the only way to get those numbers under 19, 29, 29, 35 is to have less kids apply. Moving the 8th grade to the high school, we're not going to see a decrease in enrollment that steep within the first few years to go from 55, for instance, in FY27 to 15 applicants. 40 less kids aren't going to apply in 1 year. Same thing in 28. So that's where I'm saying, let's put a pause on this. And if the BVT formula does what the BVT formula is supposed to do, we're going to organically see that change happen. I'm going to pause here for any questions.
Is this slide what they gave you as far as like how they're actually configuring these numbers? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
That's not math, and I agree.
Right, like, I don't, why, because there's only 24 in the 12th grade, would this next class get to 19, but the following year get to 29?
Because they're
It's
lessening the
taking-
enrollment by 5 students a year.
Yes, you're taking this bottom number and subtracting, so the 12th grade, subtract 5 from that. So 24, subtract 5 is 19. In 27, there's 34, subtract 5 is 29.
No, I get that,
And
but,
I get it too, but to me, in the long run, it's increasing the number. It's not,
by the time you get back to the 40,
it's down to 35.
you're at 35
They're
again.
gonna- But that's based on this year. It'll go, it's like a rolling, and this is just based on his algorithm that he's doing for this year. It'll come and go as it comes and goes up and down, but on average, it'll be 5 less students per year.
I think, I understand we have no control over this, and it has, I think everyone at home should know that Douglas has no control over this.
The formula.
Zero.
Because this, in my opinion, is punishing our vocational students because of how many kids are in the 12th grade. Do you know what I'm saying? Because why should that class, who has actual vocational drive, I don't know, be 10 less than the next year? Like, this is very unfair to the students of Douglas who have actual desire to go to BVT. This is not like a fair.
So I think parents need to advocate for their child, right? Because it is a lottery
There's a
system,
lottery system,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the squeaky wheel. If your child doesn't get in that lottery, the first go around, it's the squeaky wheel. Where's my child on the list, right? It's the squeaky wheel. Kids are going to move in and out of district during this time frame too, and your child still can, if you're in 10th grade, your child, if there's a room in the district, or if another district doesn't send enough kids, you can go in. So while they say they're going to cap it, doesn't necessarily mean it's
there-
going
But
to.
you see what I'm saying?
I absolutely agree.
Absolutely. So part of the issue that they were responding to was the difficulty that towns had to appropriately budget for BVD. So if you look at FY '26, 40, 34, 34, 24, you're looking at a swing from if you look at 9th grade, 12th grade, 16 kids. We had no idea how many kids they were going to accept from Douglas. So this creates, from a budgeting standpoint for towns, the ability to say, okay, we know that in FY '28, the number's on or about 29. So let's say the town administrator budgets roughly for 31 students. He at least knows that's a pretty solid number. So that from a budgeting standpoint, because that was a lot of the issue, sometimes one year you'd have 24 kids accepted, the next year would jump up to 40, and you're seeing that swing of 16 kids. It made it really difficult for municipalities to budget for this. So this, from a budgeting standpoint, for municipalities, solves a lot of issues. In some ways, I understand your point too, where if you're looking to decrease, if you have a class, for instance, that has, let's use next year, 19. If you have a class that, for instance, has 30 kids who could truly benefit from a vocational education, next year, the cap is on or about 19. So yes, there are going to be some students that may not get into BVT, but that was happening this year when we had, for instance, we had last year 56 kids apply and only 24 got accepted. So,
Wait. But
sorry,
like,
in
do we have
we've been averaging 56 kids applying a year. So if you look at just FY '26, if you use that number as 56, for the 9th graders, there were 16 kids who didn't get in. I hope my math is going to be good this late at night. But the 10th and 11th grade, you had 22 students who didn't get in. And for the 12th grade, you had 32 students who applied and didn't get in. So they've been turning away students. I mean, that's not the right
Yeah,
word.
but do you see the percentage? That's a huge change. I don't understand why you wouldn't take like that, more like what you were saying before. Again, we have no control over this, so I don't even know but why they wouldn't take the average of how many students we have going there throughout the years and drop it, as opposed to why in FY30 that class gets 35 kids in, but our class next year only gets 19. I hope parents at home are paying attention and
And
looking
again,
at
this is
that.
their formula.
I know.
And what they're
Again,
doing.
we have nothing to do with it, but
And the goal of BVT was, his goal and the feedback he was getting time and time again was twofold. One, you're killing budgets by the fluctuation of towns never able to predict what's going to happen. And certain communities, proportionally, were sending way more kids, and you were crushing smaller communities. Secondly, the inability to be able to budget appropriately for this. So as you do with any, as you know, you heard State Rep McKenna said, when you redo a formula, there's that give and take. He's redoing a formula to try to address some issues. There are parts about this I like. I like the predictability of it. I like that we as a town can kind of have an idea of what we're going to see for funding. I like the fact that it's now a lottery system, so kids who maybe didn't interview great have now the ability to get in. I like the fact that there's going to be some system in place that doesn't crush us and the opportunity for kids going to the high school. With us getting up to 17.5, if you use the number 18 kids, that's going to increase the number of students that go to the high school, which is going to increase opportunities for kids here within the Douglas public schools, right? So if you use 18 as a number, I'm looking over here, you're going to add 40 to 50 kids over a course of 4 years to a building. That can strengthen opportunities in your music program, that can strengthen opportunities in your drama club, that can strengthen your athletics. And I even went back and I said it, you look at some of our classes that might have 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. It's tough to have a debate with 4 kids in Spanish 4 class. Now you get 12, 13, 14. That strengthens educational opportunities for kids. It also now allows us potentially to offer some different classes because we now have more of an enrollment. But to your point, 1,000%, it stinks that in FY 27, 19 kids can only get in, but in FY 30, 35 can get in. And over a 10-year period, that number is going to streamline down to 17.5 based off of current numbers.
Yeah. Can I hop in through the chair?
Absolutely.
A few things. I'm wondering, I think I get it, but maybe I don't. So I'm hoping that for me and for the viewers at home, that if you could describe how BVT is funded, the per pupil rate, and I understand it doesn't come out of the state, but it comes out of the town budget, not our budget, the school
Right.
budget, but it still comes out of the taxpayers' budget.
Right.
So it is not only we pay into it as a town, right, as a member town, but there's also a significant per student.
So it's approximately, for even numbers, about $15,000 per student that goes to BVT. There's one pot of money that comes into the town of Douglas, and it gets allocated to the various departments. So if you reduce 5 students a year, 5 goes into $15,000, $75,000. So that's an additional $75,000 of revenue back to the town. You multiply that out over a 4-year period, that's $300,000 back into the town of Douglas. That can be allocated, some of it to the schools, some of it to fire, some of it to police, some of it to roads, some of it to capital. You reduce over a 10-year period 50 students at, let's call that $15,000, you're looking at $750,000. That's substantive money.
But we also pay in addition to that, don't we, as a town? Isn't there as a member town, don't we pay?
I don't know the answer to that. I think we're paying, if there is, I don't know what that fee is.
I'm pretty sure there is, and I'm pretty sure it's a substantial amount of money. And I think that each town that is a member of the Blackstone Valley and that ascending district, if you will, pays. So I guess, and I'm bringing this up because money's tight. I feel differently about these numbers than you do. I agree. I don't think the math is mathin'. But I have an issue with BVT's existence. And that is, I know what it was, I know what it's become, and I think it's lost its way. I'm excited about this lottery program because I think it's going to give kids that maybe didn't have a chance because of what has become of BVT. And it's a wonderful school, but I think it's a private school on everybody else's dime. So I'm hopeful for the change. I just don't know that I trust this formula. And I know that's a bold thing to say. I just am looking at this and I'm seeing it actually increase. And I'm not, even if you go down 4 more years, you still have these high numbers that are existing.
Correct.
So I'm like, how is this going to get from the 17?
Right.
So you've got these 40s and these 35s, as people at home can see. I'm like, the 19 is the outlier here. These numbers are going to still stay high.
They're still going to stay
So
high.
I would urge us to be really careful about who's crafting these numbers.
Which is why I'll go back to, should the BVT formula not yield the
Right,
desired
got it.
results? So if this does what Anthony says it's supposed to do, we're going to organically see less and less kids going to BVT, more and more kids staying within the Douglas Public Schools. And again, if we're averaging 55 kids applying to BVT, moving the 8th grade to the high school, the only way to get, with now a cap, or let's call it a cap, with a cap being in place, the only way to get below that cap is to have less kids apply than the slots we have available. And if we look at what we're seeing for numbers here, 40, 19, 29, 29, 35, knowing that statistically we've been averaging 55 kids a year applying, the average across the 13 communities is 43. I don't see immediately moving and causing that level of upheaval for our staff and for our kids and for our families. We're going to see those numbers drop from 55 to 20 in 1 or 2 years. So let's let the formula do what we think the formula might do. Let it play out organically, hopefully have more kids stay within the Douglas Public Schools. And if the formula doesn't do that, we've at least started the work to potentially move the 8th grade up to the high school.
Through the chair.
Absolutely.
In reviewing this, because I honestly think that this formula is a bit of snake oil. I think the most important thing that we should focus on is the percentage, it's not on this slide, the 43% and the 56%. To me, there's opportunity for growth for Douglas.
That's coming up in the next few
Oh,
slides.
am I spoiling it?
No, but go
Okay,
ahead. You want to tease it out?
Well, I haven't looked at it, spoiler alert. But what I'm thinking is what can we do and what are other districts doing?
It's coming
Oh
up.
my God, great minds. Let's see what you got.
Are there any other questions so far on this?
I'm good.
I'll
ahead,
keep
Meg.
going with you on this, and then we'll
Okay.
see where we're at.
So next steps.
Okay.
All right? As I said, I want to hear from the staff and I want to hear from the community. So next week on Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have a joint meeting with primary and elementary school staff and then with middle school and high school staff on Tuesday the 9th to get their feedback on this proposal. And then principals and directors are, for instance, on Monday, Cindy and Ken are going to talk about if a move happens, what does it look like within their schools, so we can get feedback from staff. And then in January, on the 6th and the 8th, we're going to do the same thing with the community to get some feedback from them. If we need to add additional ones, we can, but we're starting with this. Originally, when I was going to do the move, or if I was going to do the move, I had additional meetings scheduled, but with this maybe or not happening 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, I didn't want to do 17 meetings. And again, it was interesting, I shared this, I started doing my calendar, and I had a bunch of stuff scheduled for the week of the 15th, and Diana's like, that's the week before Christmas. I'm like, you're right, not a good night to have people out. So that's why we moved it to the 6th or the 8th. So that's why there's that gap. But we're gonna have a meeting with staff, and we're gonna have a meeting with the community, just to get feedback. So if we ever were going to do a move, or even people might have questions about before and after school care, what does that look like? We wanna be able to give staff and the community the ability to talk to us. I will send tomorrow morning, probably before 10 a.m., an email to staff and an email to community highlighting this meeting, highlighting what's going to be covered at these meetings on the 8th, 9th, 6th, and 8th, and giving them the opportunity to attend. Principals and directors will continue to look at schedules and logistics to plan for a potential move, and as you know, it's bolded and underlined, if needed. We just want to have a skeleton of a plan in place. All right? The other big piece, and this is what you were talking about, is we're going to continue the work that has started between the middle school and the high school to promote and market both schools. And I really want to give massive props to both principals, Desi and Jackie as the dean and the assistant principal, but the counseling departments of both schools for their creativity and some of the stuff that they've done. I think it was the week before Thanksgiving, we had 4 8th graders come up and shadow at the high school. And one kid said, I don't know why I'm going to go, because I'm going to go to BVT. Student came, saw it, went home and told his parents, I don't think I want to go to BVT anymore. I loved what I saw. So we're going to continue doing a lot of marketing and promoting between the middle school and the high school to try to organically lower, or not organically, to lower those numbers of applicants. So we're going to continue having monthly lunch visits. So what does that mean? I've asked the counseling department of both schools and the principals of both schools to come and visit. So have Bob and Jackie come to the high school for a lunch period and talk to kids and see kids. How do you like the high school? What could we have done differently at the middle school? What did you like? What didn't you like? So make those connections. But also have Rob and Desi in the counseling department here go to the middle school and have those conversations. And if we know anything about middle school kids, they see someone who they don't know in the cafeteria, they're gonna walk right up and say, who are you and what are you doing here, right? And that's how those connections and those relationships get built. We're gonna continue with the 8th grade high school options and information presentations. We did 2 on Monday. We did 1 during the day, 1 during the night for pathways to talk about what we offer here at the school. We had about a half dozen parents attend. Transition events we talked about, shadow days we talked about, individual planning meetings. Kayla and Jen have done an incredible job the past 2 months having conversations with 7th and 8th graders about what works, what doesn't work, what would they like to see. One thing that came back was kids really want to go back to seeing some more enrichment opportunities. Those after-school enrichment opportunities, I know Bob and Diana had a conversation about how that's going to work, and we're looking to see if we can bring that back at the end of December. The high school and the middle school staff have done a lot of work spotlighting and highlighting different opportunities that are happening across both schools. The MyCap and the MIFA lessons have been awesome. The Nichols Honors Academy presentation for 8th graders. We have the opportunity for our 8th graders to be part of a Nichols Honors Academy. We started this about 3-4 years ago, where Nichols comes here. We send our kids to Nichols. That is a great program just to get kids on a college campus and see what's going on and build those leadership abilities. We talked about enrichment programs. We talked about getting 7th graders more exposed to what's happening at the high school. So we're going to continue building those opportunities for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to hopefully have that 56% drop below the average of 43% to 30%. And I want to be clear, BVT is a phenomenal program. And we should be sending a portion of our kids to BVT because they should go there, they deserve to be there. They offer things that we can and we never will be able to offer as a public school. The issue was the unpredictability from a budgeting standpoint and the fluctuation of 40 to 20 to 19 to 35 to 60, which makes it really difficult to budget for. And the fact that the proportion and ratio of the amount of students that were going to BVT from Douglas were crushing opportunities for us and for our kids in the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Can I piggyback on what you
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
said? But I don't know that I'm going to say this very eloquently.
I'll translate.
Thanks. It's so interesting to come and like hear all of these comments about like BVT and our school system and all of these things. I think I just want to like pull us all back to our mission statement, which is what is best for our students. And I feel like on this committee, we talk a lot about opportunities for all students. And sometimes I feel like the conversations around BVT are so budget centric that we're losing focus on the mission. Because when we say all students, and we've had, you know, when we've had our retreats in the past couple of years, we've talked about what does the community of Douglas look like? There's a lot of blue collar families and a lot of children who want to be blue collar workers, and I don't even know if that's a politically correct term anymore. And so I think that's why we have this it's not necessarily that Douglas High School isn't providing what kids need for education, it's that we come from a community of children who want to go into the trades, and that is the path for them. So I feel like the conversation gets very budget-centric instead of student-centric, and I think we're not losing them because Douglas is a bad high school, it's because there's so many of them want to go into a trade, they want to work with their hands, and there's only so many opportunities that Douglas High School offers. And you guys have done a great job of increasing those programs so that we can keep more people in district. But I feel like it's just like have this negative connotation of why there's so many kids. But I think there's great reasons behind it.
Before you jump in,
Yep.
please. I agree. It's very budget centric, and a lot of the negative tone comes from me. I haven't accounted for it. But the reason why is because I have a firm belief that the students. First of all, BVT is wonderful. Like I want to go there and eat and hang out and like do all the fun stuff. But my concern is that they got away from their mission statement.
Correct.
And in sending so many students, we are unable to provide more hands-on pathways to these like trades, which let's be real here, the trades are really suffering. The students that are going to BVT, as far as I'm concerned, aren't going into the trades. They're offered more AP classes than they are in our regular districts, from what I understand. And maybe I'm misinformed.
I'm not saying you're misinformed, and you're right. I know exactly what you're saying because there are students going there who are very likely to go on to
Great
college
things. Yeah, all
and
great
other things that are not the trades that they're studying.
Yep.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I agree. I think the lottery system opens that up
Correct.
more for the students who really and truly would benefit from those pathways. But I just feel like every conversation that we have around BVT has to do with the dollar amounts, and the conversations that we have about keeping kids in district less and less have to do with appealing to the children that are here and how we can make the high school more appealing to them. One of the other things is that hands-on, right? Those kids go to that open house and see that they don't have to sit in a classroom all day and have all these experiences. Like, how can we get the high school to show the kids look, I don't know what this food is sitting out in there, but somebody did a great job. You know what I mean? Like, how do we bring the kids up here to show them those things that are happening here?
So that's part of, first off, I understand your point. If you look, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I had them send me the data, and I looked at it over a 3-4 year period. The percentage of kids that are going to the trades from Douglas who go to BVT, I think statistically it's like 15 to 20% of the kids are going into the trades. The rest are going to some 2 or 4 year college option. So you're right. Hopefully the lottery shifts that a little bit to allow for more students to go in. Now, with that said, it depends how you define trades. There are a lot of kids who are going to BVT for instance,
Medical.
for medical or for CAD or for engineering, and are going to WPI. But that gets away from their core mission statement, which was written in the early 60s. But going back to the true core of the trades, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, kids who are from Douglas going there and going into the trades, that percentage is very, very small for it. So hopefully this lottery system shifts it. I think what we've been able to do, or what we've started to be able to do, to talk to 8th graders, talk to 9th graders about marketing Douglas is going to help change some of that. I think we did a survey of families as to why they went, and for a lot of them, again, it was a small sample, I think we only got about 40 people who replied, but a lot of it was because my brother went there, because my sister went there, because that's the logical next step. So we need to find a way to break that narrative. Some of the stuff that we heard came down to athletics. I've played field hockey. I've always played field hockey. I want to continue to play field hockey. I don't want to co-op in high school to play field hockey. I want to go to school that offers field hockey, right? And even one of the things we looked at is, okay, let's say we were able to provide transportation. It's $400 per bus per day to transport kids from Douglas to a school. So if we were going to co-op with, let's just say, Uxbridge, for whatever sport it is, it's $400 a day to transport one team to Uxbridge. That's $2,000 a week over a 30-week school year. It's a budget buster, right? And that's for one sport. If you had to do that for multiple sports, because not all kids are going to go to Uxbridge. We have some kids co-oping in Hopedale for hockey. We might have some kids who might want to do gymnastics in Milford or swimming in Hopkinton. So we could be so that we looked at that. So you have some kids doing that. Some kids just want a fresh start. You know, we're so small that with class sizes of 80, by the time you get to the 8th grade, you've been with the same kids 180 days for 8 years. You're like, I just want to meet new people, right? And depending on, I mean, we all went to high schools at different places. Sometimes you just want to go to a bigger high school, and we can't provide that here. But you're right, how are we going to increase it? But you go back to the dollar amount. Those financial resources they get sent back to the town could potentially come back to the school department, which then would allow us to potentially increase opportunities for kids. And I say would, because it's not my money.
Yeah.
It goes to the town. It'd be up for the town to allocate that to the schools, and we don't know how costs go up, and as we talked about formulas, but it would be great to get to the point if, let's say there is $750,000 at the end of 10 years, and we're able to take $300,000 and put that back into the school department. You can do stuff with that. That's programs, that's opportunities for kids, that's athletics, that might be extra teaching staff, it might be new technology. There are a lot of things you could do with that if those funds were reallocated back into the schools.
I think I appreciate that all of this is a lot of work and all of this is a lot of moving pieces. None of us up here, I think, like, we're all here for all kids. We've always been here for all kids. But yes, we do have a responsibility to our budget. I think going back to, I don't remember. I think you probably. But the be all and the end all to me is, what do our incoming high schoolers want in their high school experience? What can we feasibly do to change and provide that? And how can we make them have the best high school experience they can have?
And remember, the purpose of this study was, do we move the 8th grade to the high school? Right? That's what it was. And as part of that, which I knew was going to happen, these conversations happened. So as the 8th grade and the middle school, and again, it happened in other pockets too, as we were looking at this, it was like, okay, how can we strengthen our middle school, and how can we promote our high school? How can we start having those conversations with kids to try to keep them in district? And I'll say this for them, they've done an amazing job, as the high school has over the past 2 months, saying, okay, what can we do? How can we start reaching out more to families? How can we start doing surveys? Kayla sends out an email probably 3 times a week. Did you know? Did you know? They put together an amazing slide deck that they're going to go into win blocks at the middle school in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to talk about opportunities at the high school. So our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade dudes, everywhere from the pathways to our athletic programs to before and after school programs to clubs to sports to academic opportunities. So that's something we had done a little bit, but they're like, okay, we need to up our game, and that's happened. But we've gone off on tangents. The purpose of this study was, do we move the 8th grade up, yes or no? And now we're not going to do that because we had to do that potentially for 2 reasons. One, for space, and that's off the table. 2 was to stop the amount of kids going from 8th grade to BVT, let's call it what it is, right? And I think this formula, coupled with what our staff is doing, is going to reduce those numbers. And I heard loud and clear from the 8th grade staff, and the entire middle school staff.
They came.
Yeah, and they came about their feelings for it. So I'm not going to make that move and recommend that move if the results aren't going to yield what they should yield, and put people in a community and a staff and kids through that to push something through. This could potentially solve the issue, and if it does, middle school staff's thrilled to stay where they're at, right? And then ending with acknowledgements. Again, we did a lot with a lot of public schools. We reached out, and I added at the end because we said that if we're going to use AI tools to create PowerPoints, we have to at least be
Wherever Becky is,
transparent
she is
to say
jumping up
that.
and down
Yes,
right
some
now.
things like ChatGPT and Gamma AI did help in creating this presentation. So, you know, it is what it is. It's the new age of technology. So I think that's the end of the presentation. Again, happy to open it up to more questions. This presentation is what I'm going to be, is the first part of what I'll be doing with staff and families in December and January. And then principals are finalizing their presentation for what they think conceptually it would look like if the move had to happen. So families can offer, and staff can offer feedback and input to us for things we need to be thinking about, so they can go and do their homework as well, too.
Anybody else have anything?
I just have a random question.
Okay.
I know, it's late. So we have, and I'm probably gonna say it wrong, but we do have some like college opportunities for high school students to start taking college classes. Or where it's in the works.
So one of the things we've started conversation with is a potential dual enrollment program with a local university. Interestingly enough, I met with the teachers union today, the DTA, to answer a lot of their questions and continue the conversation as to how we make that work. Schools have always tried to figure out how to create a dual enrollment option, right? And really the difficulty stems from, there are many ways to do it, but if we send our kids to a college campus, our schedule rotates, theirs doesn't. Okay, so now you have to create a stagnant schedule here, which isn't a good thing. College professors could always come to Douglas, but with our schedule rotating, it creates havoc with their schedule wherever they're at. So that was one stumbling block that we came upon. We also want to try to, you know, what some schools have done is they've been able to freeze some things, half days, full days, but now you have to make sure, how is a kid getting to Assumption? How is a kid getting to Worcester State? Are you creating a barrier and some bias? Are you creating a barrier for certain kids not having the ability to do it? So right now we're looking at a way to have our staff teach college level classes to students. And there's a whole host of things you need to go, even things you don't even think about, where you can't, because we're a municipality, and Worcester State, for instance, is a public institution, you can't be in two state contracts at the same time. So this is a private institution, which removes that barrier for our staff doing it, but now you have our staff employed by both the Douglas Public Schools and a third party, which is fine if you want to do that at night, but during the school day. So it's navigating those conversations and making sure that staff is protected and kids are protected. So we had a great meeting today with a bunch of representatives from the DTA, and we're hoping to get that in place for next year. There's a lot of early college acceptance with the goal of ultimately trying to get kids to graduate Douglas with about 15 college credits. And that's 5 classes. And what we're looking at now
That's
is
exactly
the
where my brain
ability
is going.
to have that free to families. Okay? And really the push and the excitement around it is the hope that some kids take the classes here who may have never thought that they could go to school and say, oh my gosh, I took 5 classes, I got a B+. I can go to college and enroll at Quincy or a community college. Or have a student who's like, hey, I can't go because I can't afford it, but now you have a semester paid for, and they enroll in Quincy and say, hey, this isn't so bad, I'm gonna figure it out. So the opportunity to get some students who may never thought they could do it, the ability to do it, but also to have a kid who said, you know what, I was gonna go to Quincy, but now I might go to Worcester State instead, or I might go to UMass Amherst, or I might go to Clark, or I might go to UMass Boston and do that. Or to have kids, I can't afford it, but you know what, I at least now have a semester paid off, so let me take 3 classes and see what happens. So it's gonna open some doors for kids. But again, it's a slow process. By the time we get to 15 credits, as I said to members of the DT, this isn't for the current 9th, 10th, 11th to 12th graders. This is really looking at the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. It's gonna take some time to build to that. The first step is getting that first class off the ground, hopefully next year.
No, I think that's awesome. I was just, when we talked about the data of how many kids went from BVT into college, you know, if they could experiment with a pathway here with criminal justice or whatever, and then be taken, like, I'm old now, but now I'm thinking like, wow, then I could have done that to see if I liked it and done that for free. And maybe I didn't like either one of them, but I didn't lose any money.
And at least now you got 6 credits towards
Yeah.
gen ed classes
Exactly.
at the college level.
Exactly. That's all.
Anything else?
So, I agree with everybody's comments. Obviously, most people may or may not know, both my kids are, I have one that graduated, one's there now, right? I, as a parent, advocated for my child, right? And I think that's going to behoove with this lottery system. You have to advocate for your child. I agree with you. For the kids that need a trade, it is an awesome school. Douglas High School is an awesome school. It's know your kid. What is your kid's requirements? And you as a parent are going to have to advocate for your child. If they belong at BVT, North Fork Abbey, or another technical high school within the region, and they have availability, there's opportunities there, right? But it behooves to have those conversations. We're trying, like, it's not just a budgetary number, and like I said, it's all of our kids. BVT is a wonderful school, Douglas High School is a wonderful school, Norfolk Aggie is a wonderful school. If that truly is where your child needs to go, then you're gonna have to advocate, because it's now a lottery system for BVT, which is welcomed, but at the same time, there's gonna be kids that are not gonna have that opportunity. And so parents are going to really have to be advocating for their child, as we all should be, right? I appreciate the roadmap that we laid out. I'm gonna call this a roadmap, right? The thought, the methodology that was put into place. I also would like to thank the Douglas Middle School staff for coming and speaking to us last week. I thought that was just very thoughtful of how they brought suggestions to us. They critiqued it, but in a positive manner, not a negative manner, and working collaboratively back with the administrative staff to make sure that they understood, and their willingness, the teachers union as well, right? Just hearing from them, because they care as much as we care about our community with our kids. I think it's wonderful that the primary school is going to expand upon the early intervention services we're going to be able to offer by expanding that program. That's huge. And if we could possibly get the ADA compliance playground, I'm just saying, I think, you know.
Email them in the morning.
Yes, it's just, the thought of
We're
each
moving
one
into
of the
it.
principals taking that time to think outside of the box, because we would have never, I don't think at the primary school really thought, like, let's go for early intervention. Because if you take care of early intervention, it relieves a lot of the costs that you're gonna have as they go through. I think that's a wonderful, it's well spent, in my humble opinion, it's well spent to advocate and expand the primary school for that. So, again, I hear everybody's comments, I take it to heart. We're educating all of our kids in our district, and we're gonna do the very best that we have with the dollars we have. And I like the fact that we learned this, the citing of the AI tool, right? So I want to commend.
It didn't, I don't know if it's official MLS citation.
It is, because I just had one of these
But at least
job
people
training
know that-
things at
yeah.
work, where they're like, yeah, you should be on at your presentation actually citing that you're using these tools. So kudos on that. Thank you so much for this roadmap, and we'll probably have to dust it off in a couple of years once we figure stuff out again.
If the formula changes or it doesn't do what it's supposed to do,
Right.
we'll look at. But maybe the work that's being done with our counseling departments at both schools, even if the formula changes, if that number of applicants reduces to 35%, and they're taking 25 students, that's it's a lot better than 40. And again, it's still infusing funds back into the school department and into the town, which we're looking to do, but it's also, more importantly, increasing opportunities for kids here at the high school by having just more students,
The opportunities. And
the opportunities.
I am going to be supporting the feedback sessions at the Douglas Primary School Cafe and the Douglas Middle School Cafe. I'll be our representative for that one. So if we're having more than 2 school committee members attend, we need to post it so we don't have a violation of public meeting
Especially
law.
this conversation, yeah.
So just FYI, I do plan on attending it. I don't know.
Okay.
So if we want to just be on the safe side and just post it,
Oh, I will not be at those first two because of the time.
I know, the first 2. But,
I think we should just post it, just.
yeah.
I'll just post it.
It just
Oh, yeah,
post
that's a
it,
good
just,
idea.
just because I don't want any conflict from anybody, but I would like to hear, is there a way to do a Zoom on the 8th and the 9th, possibly for us? That's to hear from staff on their feedback sessions.
Where did I say I was holding them? What rooms?
They're at the Douglas Primary Cafe and then the art room in the middle school on the 8th and the 9th, so that's next week.
We should be able to do Zooms for those, yeah. Okay.
Because I would be interested in also hearing staff, because I think that's important too. So,
I'll set those Zooms.
thank you.
I just didn't know where we were.
Yeah, and just if we can post that, because it
I'll
has to be
post that, because
tomorrow.
again, and the reason to post is, we talked about this at the school, there might be dialogue that goes on back and forth, and we just want to make sure that we're covered that way. Awesome. All right. And the last exciting topic is the Douglas Public Schools Employee Handbook. It's a wonderful 30-page document, so let me tell you, 29, tell you a little bit about the origin of this. One of the things we've been trying to do for the past few years, and it was a goal that came out of our summer retreat and some of the stuff that Ms. Leonie was looking at, is increasing our HR department and modernizing our HR department. One thing we've never had is an employee handbook for all employees. All right? Everything from, cafeteria nutrition services, knowing about 51As, knowing who to contact for Title IX, different Mass General laws, McKinney-Vento information, query requirements, the importance of wearing ID badges, things around compensation and pay. It's all outlined here. Professional attire, mileage reimbursement. So we've spent a tremendous amount of time over the past 3-4 years, but probably since the summer, working on this document. This document was sent to legal counsel, and they spent about a month back in August probably, looking at it to make sure it was compliant. Principals looked at it, our directors looked at it. I sent it back to the heads of the 4 unions, or the heads of the 4 families. We wanted to do a little soprano, because I saw Julia wanting me to go there. I sent it to the heads of the 4 say families, for union presidents. And we actually had a wonderful meeting with Kevin Rin, John Wagenheim, and James Kolbiak, the MT rep, where we went through and they're like, don't forget this, you need to change this, and they actually didn't have a problem with it going out. Obviously, the CBA, the collective bargaining supersedes anything that's in this, but this is at least a document that we can hand to staff, that someone's like, hey, where do I go? Or like, what do I do? It's a start of a handbook. So I'm presenting this to the committee just for you to see that, again, not around teaching and learning, but just all the different stuff we do. But we want to get this in the hands of all employees, everyone from administration to cafeteria to administrative support staff to DTA to paras and ABAs for our manual. So I'm sharing it with you tonight. It'll go out in the next 2-3 days for staff to have, and it's just, again, a resource that if they ever have questions, at least they know. I know you read it thoroughly in all 30 pages. It's a wonderful read, but if people have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Are we changing the date? That was the only thing I saw. It was
What's the date?
August 2025.
Well, yeah, I'll change the date at the beginning.
That's the only thing that I
That's
would
what,
say.
because that's when I wrote it.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So, anybody else?
God, this looks great.
Yeah, I think this came out of the retreat feedback, so I'm really glad that this was getting addressed, because it
Yeah.
definitely seemed like the teachers were hopeful for something more.
And again, they're also looking for some other, we started this probably 2 years ago, and like anything else, it just keeps on dropping to last on the list. And then when we had the retreat this summer, and we had a lot of conversation around HR stuff, we're like, okay, let's just push it through it. I know Ms. Landry's working on some things that came out of that retreat for staff, but we've spent a lot of time, I mean, it's 30 pages single-spaced, reading it, editing it, making sure that everything's covered, so.
I think our staff deserve it. I think they deserve to have a nice professional handbook and to know what's expected of them.
Correct.
Yeah, and if I could just echo off that, it's almost a comfort. Like, I wish I had a handbook to tell me what I needed to do. So this is really, I think it's a great resource.
No,
You
it's
know what I
not.
mean? You're like, you have a question and you like don't want to ask it, but you can check the handbook and then you're like, oh, okay. So I just think this is a really terrific resource for the staff. And I know that you guys put in a ton of work. This is incredible.
Well done. Well done. Thank you so much for the time and effort, because I know this was not an easy feat.
That's it for tonight.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the school committee and subcommittees accounts payable report, warrant 20 SCH 26, warrant SCHL 26, and warrant MS 26-03. There was, in the first batch, 17 items for $571,477.54. It was reviewed by Rebecca DeMarco. She's not here tonight, but obviously there was nothing out of the ordinary with that one. And let me go to the next. There. It's 133 pages for people at home. If you really want to go look at it. Days we miss. I'm zooming, but obviously I'm not zooming too much. No, I need L.
Thank God we moved to electronic.
Yep. Right.
Saving a lot of money.
Yes. We're being resourceful. We're being a little bit green.
Yes. I was going to say our environment.
Are there two?
There's, I'm just looking for the L.
I know.
It's like 50.
Look, Diane's just smiling at us.
I know.
You should have,
Note to, if we could have like what page it's on,
absolutely.
that might be helpful.
Noted.
We were doing process improvements.
Between my slide deck being 30 slides and that handbook being another 30, you're probably close to page 70.
MS 26-03 was in the amount of $1,100, and it was signed by Becca DeMarco. Nothing out of the ordinary on that one. And then this must be, oh, this is the L.
I know it should be.
I have where I can do the control. Or is it maybe, it might be the whole thing in there. It is the whole thing.
It's only on one page, correct?
Yeah, it's all on the one page. So the 5,000, the $571,477.54 is all part of all three of those warrants, and nothing out of the ordinary on that. Moving on to the consent agenda is the meeting.
Do we accept it?
You don't have to.
Okay, sorry.
That
Yeah.
one you don't
Nope,
have to.
sorry.
Next stuff we do.
Can we just both accept?
So the November 19, 2025 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our November 19th, 2025 meeting.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you so much. Next is our executive session meeting minutes from negotiations with the DTA. We have a conglomerate of all of our executive sessions, and so I'm going to go through them, and then we'd be making a mass motion for all of them. October 2nd, 2024, October 17th, 2024, November 14th, 2024, December 9th, 2024, January 8th, 2025, March 4th, 2025, March 26th, 2025, and April 15th, 2025. I'd be looking for a motion to accept our executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Julia. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Awesome. Next is the executive session meeting minutes for pre-negotiations. Again, we're going to be doing a motion for all of the meeting minutes from the executive session, starting with September 19th, 2024, October 9th, 2024, November 4th, 2024, December 2nd, 2024, January 6th. That's 6?
Yep.
Yep.
I wrote on my thing. January 18th, 2025, and then February 24, 2025, and April 10th, 2025.
So moved.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by?
Meg. Meg.
Doesn't matter.
No, you.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? Thank you so much. Now we're on to the meal policy. This is our third reading and a vote.
Third reading. As I've said, nothing has changed from the first and second reading. We are just copying the town's meal replacement and increasing the maximum dollar amounts due to inflation and to bring up the couple-year-olds.
Any questions? Be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the Douglas Public Schools meal expense reimbursement policy.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by? Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Thanks. Next is the Douglas High School athletic donation from the Blissville Meadows Golf Club in the amount of $4,000.
As in prior years, we are grateful for the donation of Blissville Meadows Golf Club. As you know, that is where our golf team does have their matches. We are looking for approval to accept this generous $4,000 donation to be spent at the principal's discretion for the athletics program as designated.
You looking for a motion?
I move to approve the Douglas Athletics donation from Blissville Meadows Golf Club in the amount of $4,000.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks so much. Next, moving on to the business and operations report.
We are looking for approval for one transfer request. It would be transferring, we are at the elementary school, we are transferring some instructional supplies to fund and cover the cost of emergency safety buckets.
Be looking for a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve transfer number 5 on December 3rd, 2025.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by?
Beth?
Second by Beth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Thanks so much.
I would like to move on to quarter one results, budget versus actual for the general fund. I'm excited to say the plan is to be doing quarterly financial reports. This is quarter one, so please keep in mind that what we're actually looking at is data through September 30th. We're now in the beginning of December. We know a few things have happened in between then. What you're first looking at is the total general fund as of September 30th, subtracted out transportation to give us what our actual year-to-date expended and encumbrance total is. As you'll see, that's that $15,696,000. Just to let you know, what is included in this expended and encumbrance, all salaries are encumbered. Stipends, honorariums, are all encumbered in this number. Contractual services, tuitions, our out-of-district tuitions have all been encumbered as of this time. Yes, there are some lingering items, some supply items that maybe the schools haven't had a chance to encumber all of. This is still the very beginning of the school year. So when we look at our full year budget versus that actual expended and encumbrance, you'll see that we're about 98.4% of our budget. What you'll see right below that is a sort of a reconciliation of some sped costs. There is some sped spending that was put into the general fund for a timing issue. We're encumbering, our sped department was doing a wonderful job encumbering as soon as possible all of their contracts that they had. We have to move from our general fund into our budgeted line item for tuition that's going to be charged to our 240 grant, which you approved just last month. So that money goes from the that money, because we were encumbering it, it had to sit in the general fund just for a timing issue.
Yep.
It will be moved out. As well as $498,000 going into circuit breaker. That was encumbered in the general fund, moved that out.
Encumbering for a full year of special ed tuitions.
Yes, what encumbrance, we received the contract, we create the purchase order, it gets encumbered.
Gotcha.
So that we know that money is spent. We might not have paid the bill
Right.
through the warrant, but
Yep,
we know
okay.
it's coming.
But for instance, where it says less sped tuition charged to 240 grant, we didn't officially receive the 240 grant until, so what we did is we charged that to the general fund
Right, because we have to pay our
bills,
Yep.
and we wanted to encumber
Yep.
the money for the year. And now that we received the 240, which we knew we were coming,
Gotcha.
does that make sense?
Yeah, it just,
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I know. If you don't
Yep.
do it every day, it's,
just took me a second
Yep.
to.
Takes a minute. As we were going through this budget versus actual process, it kind of came about that there are some speds costs that were not budgeted for. There are about 3 or 4 students. Some of their full services were not included in the budget. Ms. Buck and I have identified the overages. Through Q1, you'll see that number of the $276,000. We do know, just to kind of give you a full number now, we know that number is about $306,000. It was a miss in the budgeting process last year. So if you back all of that out, when you look at our percentage of actual spend and encumbrances right now versus our budget, we're at about 91% expended encumbered. Again, we do know that there are some things that we have budgeted for that have not been encumbered yet. I'll pick on graduation costs right now, some of the school supply items right now. So just to kind of give an idea of where we're at, I wanted to show the past few years of where we were at. Now, FY25, I suspect that there's kind of similar situations to maybe our sped situation right now. We can't drill in and go back. I was ready to call Courtney, but I don't think Courtney could have kind of said, oh yeah, if you look here, you can figure out the exact number that was in there at that time. So for right now, I unfortunately can't do the similar reconciliation that I did in FY '26 for our prior years.
And again, just for people who might be watching it at home or even for the committee, we do reclasses and transfers all the time. So to ask the question in 23, 24, 25, where were we exactly on September 30th with all of our reclasses? There is no way, as good of a memory as Courtney has, right? Is she going to remember if we called her today, back in FY '23, did she reclassify everything she had to reclassify back from grants?
On that day.
On that day, you couldn't do it. So even looking at 23, 24, 25, those numbers are somewhat fluid as to what we reclassed and what we didn't reclassify. The big thing for people to see, and what was really important to me, is that this represents the majority of our bills for the rest of the year. So all of our salaries, which always make up 85% of your budget, salaries, honorariums, all of that, stipends have been accounted for here, as have the contracted services that we know about at this time. As you're doing grants, you do the grant, you send it in, and sometimes they kick it back to you, sometimes they don't, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks for it to drop. So as we were doing our reclasses, it brings the number back down to $91,000. And again, thank you, Ms. Landry, for all this work, but I also just want to be clear that, that 276,939 number is, and I want to appreciate the work that Kate Buck and Diana Landry and the office has done, is we put some processes in place to make sure that students are receiving the services that they need through their IEPs, both in district and out of district. And it can become sometimes difficult to keep track of that. And we put systems in place to catch it early on rather than later on. So again, as Diana said, there were things that weren't budgeted for last year. That as we were receiving our invoices between Kate's office, Lois, and Diana's office, we're like, these weren't budgeted for, and we had to budget, and we had to account for them. So whether we budgeted for it last year or this year, the services that students need per their IP and had to be done.
Would have known.
Yeah. Sorry.
I want to, kind of the bottom half of this is showing our revolving fund balances, again, at a snapshot in time, in a comparison over the past few years. School choice, we kind of see it dipping a bit. We do know that we have graduated some students. The enrollment was a little bit lower for school choice as well. That coupled with unexpected expenses that end up going against school choice and HVAC breaking, a multitude of other unexpected items. We look to school choice to help fund. Circuit breaker, again, there's lulls and lows, so the circuit breaker balance right there doesn't even include all of the revenue that we're receiving for this year, because again, it's a snapshot in time. School lunch is holding steady, as well as preschool. I have also included, you'll see the 60-page by line item report follows this summary. So please, if you see any questions on any of the line items that you'd like to question, please let me know.
Do we have lower enrollment in preschool? Is there any reason why 2 years ago we were up significantly? Or is that due to enrollment, or is that just, like you said, kind of a snapshot in time?
I think it's a snapshot in time. I'd have to look a little bit further just to see what the enrollment is. I do not believe enrollment is
No, I thought we
down.
were capped out.
It's also against the expenses. Maybe 2 years ago, we weren't putting quite as many expenses
We
together.
have-
I would have to.
We haven't raised tuition in a while at the preschool, which is something we're going to look at in January. And we do know that salaries have gone up. So
Got it. Okay.
that could be part of it. And part of it could be things we've had to buy for the program,
What was that?
things we've had to purchase.
Oh,
for the
God,
program.
yeah, okay.
It's
But-
when it's expensed, right? So, right, because it's quarter one, right? So keep in mind it's quarter one, too. It's going to ebb and flow as we go through. So I'm not concerned. I appreciate the fact that we actually have this versus, I know that the Nexus report, like, it allows you, but this is more, I think, for folks that are not financially minds. This is a good.
I'm a mom budget. That's a mom budget.
This was not created by AI.
Can you add that next time? Just to kind of.
It's more user-friendly for the layman, I will say that. So this I appreciate because I think it helps the rest of the committee understand the dollars and where they're coming from and why we're encumbering them, right?
My
So-
goal is to evolve a
And
little
so
bit.
It's
to-
built
to be
upon
able to
what
give some
Courtney put in place
snapshots.
for us, and Courtney did a wonderful job. But this is now, I think it's more digestible for the layman. So I appreciate you taking the time and effort to put this together and building this, because I think it does help everybody understand where we are. School choice is kind of like our rainy day fund that when we need to dip into it, and that's what we did. You can see how we've gone through the couple of years. We've had to dip into our rainy day fund, that's what school choice is there for. You don't want to tip too much, because if you don't get enough school kids choicing in, then that dries up, right? So just being mindful of that as we go through
Correct.
the budgeting process. But I appreciate it, and thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
That was just a lot. That was a lot easier to visualize and think about than the whole Muni report, which is great if you want to look at details.
I crunch the numbers, I look at that, that's my report, right? But for the layman, this is what you need.
Yeah, and this is even pushing it. I'm like, oh.
And again, we had this go, I want to be transparent with people.
Yep.
I don't want to say we're hiding numbers, we're not being transparent with what we're spending, where it's going. It's here, and it's posted, anyone who wants to take a look at it, or come in and meet with myself or Diana, it's there, but I want to be transparent with where we're spending taxpayer dollars.
And through the chair, it's going to be great going forward, each quarter, each year going forward. Now we have this here. You won't have to go back and recreate the wheel, right? You're like, okay, where were we last year at this time? You now know.
And your questions will help me determine what else maybe needs to be put on the
Yep.
snapshot as well. Again, all your line items, everything is here, but if we need it summarized, I am very happy to give the picture that's readable and a little more palatable to understand.
Without transportation too. Yeah,
So, but again, great job.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I had this evening. Thank you.
Any topics not anticipated? So I just want to confirm the December 17th is going to be via Zoom.
So that I am going to try my hardest to we will do the 17th via Zoom, 1,000%, and we're going to try to keep that strictly just to a straight business meeting. If we have warrants we need to approve, minutes we need to approve, we're not going to do any reports. We're going to keep that to a pretty tight timeline. And then I think what we'll do at that meeting, if it's all right with the committee, with the 17th being 2 days before school gets out, and the 7th being 2 days after school starts, we're really only looking at 2 or 3 or 4 school days in between. We might also do, if the committee's fine with that, and I'll know more as we get closer to that date, the 7th, a Zoom meeting too, just for business purposes as well. Unless something major comes up and we have some reports we need to do, but we're looking the Wednesday, the 17th is that Wednesday, we have 2 days and then a day and a half.
It's not a whole lot's gonna come up.
Not a whole lot. And again, if something happens, we'll do it, but looking to do both those via Zoom and stick those to things that need to be approved.
So you heard it here, December 17th and January 7th, we'll be doing via Zoom unless something earth-shattering happens, then we'll be in
Correct.
person. So, great. If nothing else, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Julie made the motion, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? Thank you all, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
you.
Thank you.